Hello everyone, this is Nathan Lawrence, the tree evangelist, talking about pruning fruit trees. I've been pruning fruit trees like all my life for over 50 years. I have a tree service, Good News Tree Service in Wilsonville, Oregon, and I've pruned hundreds and hundreds, if not a few thousand, fruit trees. I started pruning fruit trees when I was about 8 years old on the family farm, and then by the time I was 12 and 13, I was pruning for money the neighbors' fruit trees, and then I worked my way up through college and high school and college, pruning fruit trees and pruning other trees, and working in the family landscaping nursery business, where we also did fruit tree pruning for clients, and I just kind of continued on in that vein. So here we are up at Transitional Youth in Wilsonville, and this tree here, they have why don't you paint it around, Josiah? We got about 40 or 50 fruit trees in here. This was an old fruit tree orchard that was let go. You can see the old farmhouse there that was built in, I think, the 1880s. And so these are some older trees. I don't think they're that old as that farmhouse, but these trees have been here a while. And this was an organic apple tree farm. The people that owned it, I think they've gone on to their reward many years ago, and now this orchard had been let go when we started pruning on it about a year and a half, going on 2 years ago. It had been let go, and so this last year we worked really hard, especially Josiah, the cameraman, and a few other guys worked really hard to prune out all the top growth out of mostly apple trees. There's some other, there's a plum tree over there, and there's a few pear trees in there. Most of these are apple trees. And this particular tree here, this is an apple tree. I don't know what kind of apple it is, but this was the very first tree we did about a year and a half ago. It was literally, you could not see through the top. I had literally cut my way, and I had to cut my way. It was such a tangled up mess. I literally had to chainsaw my way up into the tree. You could not get up there. And then we pruned it out, and now into this nice umbrella shape, which it already had that shape, but it had been let go. So there were huge branches growing up that were probably 10, 20 feet high, or at least 10, 15 feet high. Big, thick branches that we chainsawed out, and to get down to this nice umbrella shape that was there originally, but it had been let go. So this is the second year that we're pruning this tree, and so I'm going to do a quick video on fruit tree pruning. Now, we already did a couple videos on pruning the apple trees, which are on this YouTube channel. You can go back and look at those videos, but I'm going to get specific about now that the tree has been kind of beat into submission in a nice umbrella shape. I'm going to kind of give some pointers on pruning of fruit wood. Before I do that, I want you to notice up here a lot of sprouts going straight up. That's just 1 year's growth. All those need to come off. Just a matter of taking a hand pruners like this, a handy dandy Felco pruners, and just going up there and snipping them all off. And it's pretty simple. Everything going vertical. In 99% of the case, it's coming off. Sometimes we leave one of these sprouts. They're called water sprouts. Suckers are what grow up from the bottom. Water sprouts are what grow up out of the tree. Okay, just to use the proper terminology. Sometimes people call those suckers, but those are not technically suckers. And I can't remember the difference between the two, and why they are called water sprouts. I have known, but I've probably forgotten more stuff about pruning trees than a lot of people will ever learn. So it's hard to remember it all. But anyway, sometimes we do leave a sprout. For example, here's a sprout here. Sometimes we leave a sprout that maybe we want, not that I'm going to leave this one, but I'll probably take it off. But let's say this was out in an open area, and we wanted to begin to train this sprout to go out, and or let's pick let's pick this one. This isn't a really good example, but let's say here's a sprout that's kind of growing diagonally, and if this were an open area, I would maybe leave this sprout, because eventually we can turn this sprout into fruiting wood, because it'll grow and it will continue to grow. And I might help it out a little bit by add some downward facing buds. These are all leaf buds, but some downward facing buds. So you got buds on the lower and the upper part of the branch, but I might cut it at a lower bud with the hopes that that will sprout out and eventually it'll grow down. And we can turn that into fruiting wood, okay? That's also reachable. Not that apple trees won't bear fruit on upright branches. They do, especially these old apple trees. You'll see fruit growing on upper branches that are almost vertical. But most of the time, they prefer to grow on branches that are bending down, and we can actually train them to bend down. And why do we want the branches to bend down and we prune them in an umbrella shape? So we can reach them. You know, if you got an apple tree that's 50 feet tall, how are you going to reach it? It's going to be great bird food, but by the time it hits the ground from 30, 40, 50 feet up, it's going to be, might be rather mushy, have bruise spots. So orchardists will prune apples so they're just like those are all pruned over there. There's a whole orchard. You can zoom in on that one. We'll go over there in a little minute. But they're all pruned low, so we can get them easily with an 8 or 10 or 12 foot ladder. Now in this case, in this orchard here, we've got wood chips down. These are wood chips from our tree service. And these are, you can actually let the apples fall on their own when they're ripe. And you don't even have to pick the apples. You can just, when they're ripe and they have full sugar content, they will drop. And you can go out and pick them up each day. So you don't get a lot of apples on the ground so that they end up hitting each other and bruising. And so if you just leave those chips there, they will drop. They will pick themselves, so to speak, and you can go pick them up. And they only have about 8 or 10 feet to fall, and it's not going to hurt anything. All right, so let's. I'm just going to kind of circle around this tree here, pick a spot. So you have two kinds of buds on apple trees. You have fruiting buds, and once you kind of get in here, Josiah, a little bit, and you have fruiting buds or fruiting spurs, and you have leaf buds. Leaf buds are, see this bud on the side of this branch here? That's a leaf bud. It lays really, really flat to the branch. That's a leaf bud. Actually, this little branch has no fruiting spurs on it. A fruiting spur is going to be a bud that is bigger and stands out. Now, we are doing this in mid-December. As you can see, we're all bundled up. Fruit tree pruners tend to be a hardy bunch because you got to get out there. You're out standing in your field, your orchard, and you got you're pruning when at this time of the year often. So we do have some fruiting buds. This is a fruiting bud right here. It's standing up, and you've got some. There's some up here. See how these buds stand out? And right now it's December, so the buds are quite small. But in the winter or in the springtime, or let's say late winter, those buds will begin to fill out as juices, as energy, as food. They're getting ready to foliate, getting ready to pop, and so the buds will swell. We call it bud swell. They will swell. Right now, they're still small. All the nutrients in the tree are pretty much down in the trunk and the roots, but eventually they will swell. But even then, you can see the differentiation between the fruiting buds and there's a fruiting bud there. Here's a fruiting bud. See, these are not laying flat to the surface like this leaf bud does. Will put out leaves, but not flowers, which then the flowers become fruit. So that's number one. We got to differentiate between the leaf buds and fruiting buds. Now this particular branch here, I'm going to cut it right there because we can turn that into fruiting wood. This leaf bud on the bottom here will begin. This shoot will come out and it will begin to come down and bend down, and so we can begin to, maybe form that into some fruit wood. Now, let me just say this: when we are pruning apple trees or any fruit tree, we're pruning, keeping several things in mind. And I've explained this in some of my other videos, but we'll go over it again in this one. We're pruning, we want to get air and light in there. The fruit needs air and it needs light. The flowers need light, which the flowers then become, when they're fertilized or pollinated, they can become fruit. They want air and light. Light so they can, the leaves around them can photosynthate, and air circulation, because if you get air circulation, it's going to be a healthier environment. It's going to blow away those fungal spores, and fungus can't land on there, and you got air circulation, so again, you don't get airborne fungal pathogens so much to, when you have tight compacted wood, then you're going to get stuff that's going to collect in there, and that's not good. So we've opened this tree up pretty good. We want to keep it open. We also are pruning. We want to prune things down. We want to aim our buds so that they're aiming down, not up. That way it keeps the fruit reachable. And also we're pruning for heaviness. Now, before we prune this tree, this tree, you can see where we pruned it the year before. It had branches kind of coming almost down to the ground. And we don't want there to be, the branch to be so long that the fruit, I have to say, when the fruit comes on, because apples are heavy, that it ends up breaking the apples. Sometimes orchardists will actually, if they've got real heavy, they have a real heavy fruit year. Some trees, they'll bear heavy almost every year. Some will bear every other year. Some, there's reasons why fruit trees bear fruit heavier some years than others. Maybe when the flowers were blooming, the weather was cold and the bees weren't able to get out and pollinate. Maybe it was ice and for a late frost, it might have killed some of the flowers, and so that's going to eliminate some of the potential fruit. There's various factors. It could be chemical factors, that is chemicals or minerals, I should say, nutrients in the ground. Sometimes if a tree doesn't have the right amount of nutrients, soil nutrients like boron, it won't produce fruit, or maybe it needs to be fertilized. So there's different things. But anyway, that's not the subject of this discussion. But trees sometimes they bear every other year, but some years, or they'll have a heavy year and then they'll have a light year. Sometimes a real heavy year, if you didn't prune it properly, you might need to actually take some support, some boards, and prop them up. And you'll see some orchardists, not so much with apple trees, it's more like with I see with peach trees, and sometimes plum trees can be really heavy with fruit. Anyway, if we prune this tree properly, we're not going to have to worry about that. And this tree, so we're pruning for weight. I've been pruning apple trees a long time, so I know kind of how many apples a fruit tree can bear, that is, a branch can bear. And all these branches are just about the right size. They can bear lots of fruit. And fruit wood is really, really strong. I mean, it doesn't break that easily. You got to have a real heavy crop of apples before they break. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to kind of go through and I'm going to kind of prune. I want to prune and have buds that are kind of facing down and out, down and out. And I'm looking for we want the fruit wood that we leave to be out and open and exposed to as much of the air as possible. And if there's a branch that doesn't have a lot of fruiting buds on it or is dead, cut it off. There's no reason that the tree needs to waste energy on a branch. Like this branch here, this whole branch only has, well, it's got one fruiting bud there. Well, I guess we'll keep it. We've got one here, one there, so we'll keep it. It's got 3, so that could potentially do 3 apples. This one, I'm going to cut this off. Actually, this is broken. This whole thing's broken. I'm going to cut this whole branch off here because this is broken. No, that's useless. And then it's got a sprout that comes out and goes back around and it grows into those. So we don't even need this one. There's no benefit to that branch. Here's a branch up here. I really don't want that one going up. I want it going down, so I'm going to kind of prune Here's a fruiting bud there going down. I'm going to prune that down. And, you know, I mean, pruning is a science and an art. I'll leave this. Here's a sprout I'm going to leave out. I'm going to cut him. Eventually this will turn into fruiting wood and grow in there. This one's growing up and going around up there. Don't need him. This one's broken. Cut him off. This one's going kind of straight up. Really don't need him. I'm going to cut him off. I mean, you can leave him, but it's not that big of a deal to cut it off. And I really want to keep good fruit. This one's going in the wrong direction. It's kind of going up and going that way, and this is dead, so we're cutting him off. And here is okay, this has a fruiting spur or a fruit bud. That has a fruit bud. That's good. Here's one that's going that way, and it's growing back into the tree. I really don't want that, so we're going to cut him off. And let's see here. This is a little tiny twig. I don't really want a lot of weight on that, so I'm going to, even though this branch has like 4 fruiting spurs, that's 4 apples on this little branch. That's going to be too much for it to hold. So here's a fruiting spur, here's a fruiting, here's one, and if 1 or 2 of those make it, then well, we've got something. I'm going to cut that off. That's growing back in. And this one here, it's got normally I'm not stopping and explaining. I'm just busy going. I'm just, you know, it's really intuitive for me, but I'm going a little bit slower than normally because I want to explain it. So this is a long spindly branch, and I'm going to kind of cut it back just a little bit because it's got, I don't want it, I don't want too much going on. I don't want to break something. And here's one kind of coming down. I mean, it's got some stuff on it. I guess we could leave that. I don't know. It's not hurting anything. Let's leave it. Here's one. This one's growing in. I don't want anything growing in. I want most of it growing out. We'll cut him back a little bit. So, I mean, this is kind of a heavy branch, so maybe I'll cut it back. Gotta find this. Maybe I'll cut it back to here. There's a fruiting spur on there. And, you know, I'm not being real comprehensive here. I'm just kind of hovering around, doing some, you know, picking. This tree doesn't really need a whole lot, to be honest with you. This tree's in really pretty good shape. Let's move over here. Here's a branch. There's a sprout, a water sprout that goes that way. It goes the wrong direction. In fact, this branch doesn't even have anything on it, so we're cutting it off. It didn't have any leaf buds, any fruiting spurs. This is a really long branch coming down here like this, and there's a lot of fruiting spurs on that, but this is going to be a heavy branch with a lot of fruit. So let's just kind of unweight it a little bit and cut that off, just so it's not out there so far. I'm going to cut that back because it's got a fruiting spur there. So, you know, ones that look like they're real heavy, I kind of cut them back. And this one's growing in over the top of that one. I really don't want that, so I'm going to cut that here. And that spur, that fruiting bud there will kind of begin to grow out this way, away from there. This is broken. Somebody drove their tractor into that. Oh, it's all right. Okay, here we have a lot of thickness going on, and that one's going the wrong direction. You know, I'm pruning for aesthetics too. If you prune a tree, apple tree properly, it's going to look good. It's going to look nice, and we want it to look nice. So I prune for aesthetics as well. Now, see, here's a branch. Look at this branch. This branch starts clear up here, and it lays over the top. We got a tangled up mess here, and I really don't want a tangled up mess. I'm going to cut this whole top off here like that, and I'm going to kind of detangle. So if you get a bunch of branches growing into each other, you're going to have fruit all growing bunched up together. This one kind of curves over, and it lands in. Which one do I want to keep? I'm going to cut this off. I kind of want, okay, so think of an umbrella. An umbrella it's open and it's got the spines in it. That's kind of how we want to, see you, Luke? That's how we kind of want everything to be pruned. We want everything to kind of go all in that direction. So if there's a branch if the main part of the tree is going this way, and there's a branch that goes like that, that's what we want, kind of want to cut that one off. I mean, not necessarily, but if we can, you know, that way, maintain the overall shape of the tree, so that way you have a beautiful tree as well. So now we've already kind of opened this up a little bit. I still have a branch here that bothers me. This one's coming down, and these are crossing over each other, and they're rubbing. That's not the end of the world if they're rubbing, but it bugs me. So I'm thinking that I'm gonna just, I hate to kind of do it, but I'm gonna cut that whole thing off. Okay, and I'm going to, because that had some fruiting spurs on it, but I'm trying to detangle this little bit of a mess here. And these are laying on top of each other, so I'm gonna kind of cut that off there. Okay, here's a branch growing. This water sprout's going clear back up, it's going into the tree. We're taking that off. Here's one that's growing down and up, hitting into that branch. Cut that off. So that we kind of detangled this, and now you get a lot of nice apples just on this little complex of branches, and we got rid of some of the tangle. Now it's a kind of a nice shape. Here's some branches growing into each other. Here, I'm gonna cut that water sprout off, and what am I gonna do here? I think I'll just cut that off there, resolve that issue. This is a little heavy, cut that back. That one's good. Let me cut that, snip that off a little bit. Cut that little sprout going off. That doesn't need to be there. These branches look pretty good. They're nice, evenly spaced out. They're not all conflicting with one another. Might just cut them back just a little bit so they're not quite so heavy. And let's see. We got some branches growing into each other here. I don't like this kind of a situation. I don't like branches growing into each other. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna cut this one up here like this. Now that one, because this branch was growing down into all of this. Now this branch doesn't have so much stuff growing into it, and that's better. That's what we want. Here's a long spindly branch. Going to kind of cut him off. Don't want too much weight on there, because otherwise it's going to cause the branch to potentially break. And here is a nice branch. A lot of fruiting spurs on that. Again, I'm pruning kind of for aesthetics. That little sprout's just going the wrong direction. I really don't like that. And that one's we want to remove any broken branches or any dead branches. That one I just cut off was broken. It was just hanging there by a hair. Now we come over here. It was kind of snip this back. Man, it's cold today, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It was warmer, now it's getting cold. We might get some snow. I don't know. Anyway, this kind of gives you an idea. Here's some branches growing into each other. Well, this one's growing this way, and this one's growing this way. So again, I'm cutting usually at fruiting spurs. If I can, I cut at fruiting spurs. If there's no fruiting spurs, then I'll cut at a leaf bud. For example, here's a sprout that goes up like this, and there's no fruiting spurs on it. So I will cut at a leaf bud, and I will cut at a leaf bud that's going down. So hopefully that will, when this starts to grow again in the spring, hopefully because I cut it there, the tree will put its energy into that leaf bud, and it will begin to aim it down. And once it aims down a little bit more and it gets thicker, it will become fruiting wood. If it doesn't become fruiting wood, then we'll just cut it off. But we'll give it a chance. We'll give it a chance to produce some fruit. This is kind of a heavy limb. I'll cut some of this back. I don't want too many. A lot of fruit. There's a lot of good fruit. This is a really good little apple tree. This is going to be a happy tree, I think, next year. So basically, it's really that simple. Pruning an apple tree is really, really that simple. And I don't know, I think I've covered all the bases. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for air and light. I'm looking for good shape. I want to prune things down. I want to thin the wood out so it's not real thick. I want to remove, so that you don't get fruit growing into each other. So that's, try to remove crisscrossing branches that are crisscrossing each other and all tangled up, and leave just the best branches that look like they're the healthiest, that have the, they're going in the direction that you want them to grow in. Basically, think of an umbrella shape, and branches that go this way when the main shape of the tree is going like an umbrella, and you got a branch that's going the wrong direction. If you can, cut that off. If it's the only branch in that area and it's going to leave a hole, then leave the branch. It's okay, as long as it's not conflicting with another branch. Pretty much remove all the top sprouts that are going up, unless there's a sprout that is Well, maybe we'll go over to one of these other trees and see if we can find an example of that. Keep that in mind. Prune for weight. We don't want there to be the branches to be too heavy. These branches are very strong, but you get some little tiny spindly branches, and if you're not careful, they can you get too much fruit on them and they can snap off, and now you've just lost a good branch because you didn't prune it properly. That's pretty much it. We just want all the branches to kind of be equidistant from each other as much as possible, and thin them out so that there's a lot of room for the apples to grow. And of all possible, prune at a fruiting bud. When you prune at a fruiting bud, just leave a little bit of a stub, not much, just a little one right there. You don't want to cut like right up next to it. Leave a tiny bit of stub there. That way, if there is, this is December, I think 15th. So technically it's not even winter yet. So we got a lot of frosts and freezes still to come. And these trees are pretty strong, but and they're pretty hardy, but cause necrosis or dieback in that area. And if you leave a little bit of stub, the dieback won't get all the way into the bud. I don't know that would be an issue, but I just raise it anyway. It's just kind of a habit that I have, just as an extra precaution.